Right, come to the standstill with the pistons. I need to measure the deck, so they're all. I'm going to check them, so we'll just leave them for now. So I've just cleaned up the maintenance surface for the oil cooler. I've given it a wipe down. I'll fit the oil cooler to it now, and then I'll probably go to the front of the vehicle from there, front of the motor from there. Alright, clean the oil cooler, nice and clean. I've pulled the oil cooler out, and I've cleaned everything. I've already put the gaskets and the oil cooler back on. There's 2 O-rings you need to put in there. Give it everything a good clean. Yeah, ready to put on. New gasket can only go on one way. You can't get it any other way, so yeah, let's give it a crack, eh? Put that on there. Now there's a couple different size bolts. There's 7 this size. One of these. And another one of these. So what we'll do is we'll get one of the longer ones just to start it off. Alright, put the oil pump in. I brought a high volume oil pump. I can't see the difference between this one and the old one. It says we need to put some oil into it first. Which makes sense, it's an oil pump, we want to make sure it's got some oil, don't we? Spin oil through it. Right, the locating lug goes into there, and we shall obviously put a new seal on there. And it's going to spill all everywhere, but yeah. Right, when tightening these bolts up, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 13 to 19 foot-pound. My torque wrench doesn't go down that low, so I'm just gonna 2 clicks of the elbow. Three, 4, 5. Backing plate now. So I'm using high temp RTV silicon recommended by the engine builder. So I'm just going to trace around where the gasket goes. I'll put the gasket on, then I'll put the backing plate on. film it, I just put the camshaft in. So the camshaft's in there. I've used engine oil and camshaft assembly lube on it as I put it in. Also, as I was putting it in, I put a screwdriver in the end like that, so I got more control of the camshaft, especially when you're getting toward the end here. It went in pretty easy. I was actually surprised how easy it was. Good little tip for you. Right, the camshaft's in. I've cleaned the thrust plate and I've cleaned up the bolts. So I'll just kind of put this on. I'm looking for the side that's got nice wear on it, which is that side. So I'm going to go that way around. And actually, I think this. There's a small and long bolt. I can't remember which one goes where. They've both got the same sort of hole, so let's put them in. Put the keyway in, make sure the keyway is even. And then you should be able to put the timing gear on. Timing gear on. And then tighten the bolt. Now we'll torque the bolt up once we've got everything lined up. There's no timing between the oil pump and the timing gear. Yeah, timing mark between the pulley, that'll come later on. We'll show you that later. Now, after putting the timing gear together, so you want the one dot in between the two dots on the idler pulley, and then the one dot up here between the two dots on the cam pulley, and the Z, when we get to that, will line up with the double Z on the timing on the fuel injector pump. Yeah, I shall start putting them together. We'll put some oil in here. There's obviously a bearing in here with a groove in it. We'll put some engine oil in there, give it a bit of a lube up. There's two bolts that go in here, like retaining bolts, like so. And there's a retaining gear which I've put, there it is, retaining gear which goes in there to hold it all together. That will get lubed up before we put it in. Just give it all good clean. We'll lube it up and put it all together. And you can see that got the one dot between the two dots there, the one dot between the two dots there, and then when the fuel pump goes on, the Z will go on the two Z's. All we need to do is put in the retaining plate, 2 bolts, doing what torque, and she's done. Alright, we're measuring the deck height. So that's the amount of piston sticking above the cylinder block. So it's called the deck height. It needs to be 0.168. It's standard. This block has been machined down a little bit, so I'm expecting it to be around 0.25-ish. So I've set the gauge to 0 on the deck. And now I'm just bringing it up to top dead center, and you can see the needle move. So we're going back round, down to the bottom, bring it back up again. Here she comes. So as soon as you get that needle to start going back, whoop, too far. Go back a little bit. I'm getting 2.5 there. .6. Alright. I'm getting it at 0.26. Oh, I can't get the hole there. That's what I was getting before anyway. So we do all the pistons, then we write on top of the piston what we're getting, and then we can work out what gasket or do we need different pistons, etc. Alright, so now we've done the deck height on all the pistons, so we know what they are. I've got 2.8 on all of them, except for 2 which come up at 2.9. That could be just a me measuring thing. But yeah, so I've got it set for top dead center at the moment. The timing marks are lined up there. Timing marks are lined up there. And that's the one for the fuel pump. I'll put the fuel injector pump on next. Then we'll torque everything. Oh, make sure we check the SA oil squirter that squirts oil onto the gears. There's a little hole in it. It's got to point toward the gears. So we're going to make sure that's lined up and tightened. And then I'll put the timing cover on. Alright, I've put the injector pump on. The 3 nuts in the back are loose, so I can move the injector pump. I've tightened it up now. You've got to line the Z in between the 2 Z's on the injector pump gear. So the photo doesn't look quite right, but trust me, it is. Then you make sure your keyway is lined up when you put the gear on, and yeah, torque the bolts up, and then we can go. We'll put the timing cover on next, and we'll time the pump up a little bit later on. But yeah, make sure all your timing marks are lined up. Cool. Alright, timing cover on. I think I've got everything correct. And I put a new pulley on there. Isn't that pretty? I like shiny things. Yeah. Just remember, you've got this one nut in here. I figured that one. Alright, next is we'll time up the injector pump. Actually no, we'll put the pulley on first, then we'll time the injector pump, and then we'll start putting the rest of it together.